Everyone encounters music in their day-to-day lives. Some of you might hear it on the radio or have your parents show you their favorite band.
We see people making music on the streets, in the subway station. We hear music in the backgrounds of our favorite films, or when we're just jamming out driving down the highway.
Well, Julia and I have created music in a few ways here at WashU, but most particularly through our work with an organization called Beat Therapy. And a major facet of what we do with Beat Therapy is music education. For the two of us, and maybe many of you in the audience, music education and formalized musical training was our first experiences with music, and they shaped the way we see music today.
So, I've really been a music student all my life. I started piano when I was only 6, began flute when I was 10, and joined a choir when I was 12, and have learned a couple other instruments along the way. But some of my most vivid memories are from when I was very young, at these piano lessons. My mom would drive me after school every Tuesday to my piano teacher's studio, and I'd sit there in the lobby with all the other students waiting for my teacher to come out. And when she did, we would go into this small room. There would be a bench for me and a chair for her, and we would begin with scales. Then we would move on to the songs that I was working on. She'd critique my fingerings, my staccatos, and my slurs. She'd tell me the correct dynamics, the rules and the styles for each piece.
Some of us just weren't as good at the whole music lessons thing. And some of us maybe shed a few tears in 3rd grade when we couldn't play the recorder at the level of the rest of the class. And it's kind of funny right now, right? But the separation of good and bad students definitely happens. I mean, even in a 3rd grade class. And it can make music seem like something that isn't for everyone. It says that music should only be played if you can be good at it.
Around 3rd grade, I started to feel this way too. I hated practicing, really hated it, really hated playing my scales and all my songs. No one would tell me why, to be good, I had to be able to play my scales and songs like a professional. I yelled and I cried and I screamed to my mom and said, "Mom, I'm not good."
Because music and art have been professionalized, they've become exclusive. I mean, if I'm a parent, why would I want to spend thousands of dollars teaching my kid piano if he's not going to play for the rest of his life or, get some great values out of it? And if I only know a few chords on piano or I can't really sing, why would anybody want to listen to me play? I mean, I'm never going to be that good, so I might as well just quit now, right?
But my mom wouldn't let me quit. She couldn't really articulate to my 9-year-old self why at the time, but she says now that she knows that while not all children create beautiful music, music creates beautiful children and beautiful people. So, like my mom, what we want to challenge today are the assumptions we have about music and music making, whether it's in the context of education or any other context. We want to look at what's stopping us from using music and art for more.
Why put music in a box? Do we have to have certain assumptions to define, quote-unquote, appropriate places to use music? And what I mean by that is, do we have to have a me and a you, a teacher and a learner, even a therapist and a patient for music to be effective? Do we need this hierarchy of professionals and non-professionals for music to be effective in the way we want it to be? This hierarchy is what we believe is causing problems today.
Being a professional sort of means setting a barrier between you and others. It means placing yourself above someone else. So if I'm the artist on the radio, I can write a song and you cannot. I can sing and you cannot. People say that all the time, I can't sing. Being a professional means placing yourself on the stage as a performer, or perhaps as a speaker in front of an audience.
So, since I'm the speaker at this talk, or one of the speakers, you're probably expecting me to stand here, plant my feet, build a nicely rehearsed talk with appropriate hand gestures and adequate speaking volume. Because if I gave my entire talk yelling like this, nobody would enjoy this. This would not be a good time for any of us. And I'm supposed to stand at the stage, right? So if I just started walking around the audience giving my talk from here, why would I do this? This is TEDx, right? Speakers don't stand in the audience and give the presentation. We're supposed to stand on the stage, right? And these might be a couple of assumptions that as audience members you have coming into this talk today.
Visually, of course, there's this strong barrier between us. We're sort of up here in the light on the stage, and you guys are in the dark in the audience, expecting a well-rehearsed performance that you can probably passively absorb.
The social construction of these barriers doesn't just happen. They're created, they're taught, they're accepted, and eventually they're expected.
It is these barriers that make up the box we put around music.
But what if we step outside of that box?
Okay, you gotta work with us here. We're moving off the red dot.
Off the top. We're off the top. We're changing the game.
This section over here, follow me. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you gotta clap. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And that's good. Okay.
All right, this section right over here, we'll take right here. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Sound awesome. All right.
Okay, my middle group, we're gonna follow Alex, okay? On your legs.
We're gonna get all y'all in this, okay?
Okay, a little louder. Okay, keep going. Good, keep going. 1, 2. Awesome, okay, bring it up. Okay, now bring it down. keeping barriers is choice. Confining music to a student and a teacher or a professional and non-professional setting creates hierarchy and separation.
And while we're not saying that we can necessarily create a community per se in a 10-minute talk or a 2.5 performance, what we are saying is that you should think about what would happen if we engaged ourselves actively in this type of activity every week with the same small group of people for an hour. And what's the difference that it makes for us to be using buckets and pots and pans instead of your traditional production equipment? So we're using household equipment. What difference does that make in the performance? Let's talk about what music could be. And while we're presenting these ideas as relatively novel, it's important to recognize that communities around the world have been using these ideas for decades or even centuries.
Music can be used to create a space between two people where their voices are heard and backed up.
It can make that space less awkward or easier to cross.
It can create connections between communities or even create new communities.
And this all might sound a little bit up in the clouds, but it's truly a concrete thing. And Julia and I have seen it ourselves in our work with beat therapy. I mean, for us, maybe it's going to the juvenile detention center and seeing kids with backgrounds far different from our own, feeling comfortable expressing their personal stories through a song or a rap.
It could be going to a first grade classroom every week and using fun music activities to create a safe environment where they feel okay to express and identify their emotions.
Or perhaps it's going on a songwriting retreat with teens who've lost a member of their family and are going through the grieving process. And helping them unpack those emotional experiences by using music as a medium for them to communicate those experiences. And creating a song with them that's their own feelings on paper.
And the thing is, you've probably heard this kind of stuff before, right? It's happening all over. One really famous example, El Sistema, a fantastically successful organization of locally based orchestras for kids in poverty. Or maybe you've heard of the iPod Project, which basically uses music to help bring back memories of patients with Alzheimer's. For those of us here in the St. Louis area, or anyone who's really been following the stories of Ferguson and other cities in the past year, you've hopefully heard some of the really powerful hymnals being sung at these protests and marches that can just unite huge groups of people. There are so many examples that we could bring up right now, but what we really want to ask is why aren't these things happening every day in everyone's lives? Why is getting a glimpse of the power of music have to be such a rare thing?
It's because of the barriers that we put around music. It's because the most common misconception is that you have to be a professional or a music therapist or somebody who's good at scales to do music.
But all of those examples show that in reality, there are endless possibilities for how we can use music and music making without being a professional. Now, that doesn't mean that you should go home and just quit your piano lessons. But what it does mean is that you shouldn't stop there. You shouldn't limit your musical experience to just that. You should take your music and do more.
Think of music differently. We've seen the potential power music making can have used intentionally. So let's break our expectations of a professionalized musical world and bring music into our everyday world. Thank you guys.